Let's talk about the stock market. Just hearing those words can make it sound super complicated, right? A whole world of confusing charts and numbers. But what if I told you the secret to understanding it all is actually hidden inside a neighborhood cake shop? Yeah, stick with me and you'll see exactly what I mean. Okay, so our whole story kicks off right here. Meet Abhay. He's just gotten home from school, and as you can see, he is really upset. It turns out his friends have been teasing him about his dad, and it's all because of this one confusing and honestly pretty scary question he can't get out of his head.
He walks up to his mom, Vidya, and just lays it all out there. Is Papa a smuggler? Wow, I know it sounds super dramatic, but think about it from his perspective. It's a total mystery. All his friends' parents are doctors or engineers, something easy to explain. But his dad's job? Nobody ever talks about.
So that's where we're going to start, with Abhay's simple but heavy question. And believe it or not, by finding the answer for him, we're going to start to unpack one of the biggest ideas in the entire world of finance.
So Vidya, his mom, immediately sets him straight. No, of course not. Your papa is not a smuggler. He works at the stock exchange. But for Abhay, that doesn't really help. It just replaces one mystery with a new, even more official-sounding one.
Right? What is a stock exchange? Why is it so complicated that his dad just seems to avoid the question? Well, this is the real mystery we need to solve. And to do it, Vidya has a brilliant idea. It all starts by taking Abhay to their favorite bakery. Okay, so here's a really key idea. To understand the solution, which, spoiler alert, is the stock market, we first have to understand the problem it was created to solve. And it's a problem that pretty much every successful business faces sooner or later. The challenge of getting bigger.
So picture this. This is the local cake shop. It's amazing. Everybody in town loves it and it's making good money. But the owner, she's got bigger dreams. She doesn't just want one little shop.
And think about how that ambition scales up. Opening a second shop? Okay, maybe she's got enough savings for that. What about opening, say, 3 more shops? Oof, that's getting tough. But what about her real dream, opening 100 shops all across the country? Well, that takes a huge amount of money, way more than any one person usually has lying around.
And that right there is the million-dollar question, or in this case, the multi-million-dollar question. To make that leap from a local favorite to a huge national company, you need a serious amount of cash. So where does a business owner get that kind of money? Well, Abhay has an idea. He suggests going to a bank. And hey, that makes perfect sense. That's what banks do. But as Vidya explains, when you're talking about the money to open 100 new stores, the loan would have to be gigantic. And you don't just pay back what you borrowed, you have to pay back extra, which is called interest. That can be so expensive it could crush the business before it even gets going. So if taking out a massive, risky bank loan isn't the best idea, there's got to be another way, right? There is, and this brings us right to the stock market solution. And this is the aha moment. Vidya connects it all back to his dad's job. She says the money to build that 100-shop cake empire, it can come from the stock market. But for Abhay, this just leads to another question. How is that any different from a bank? And here is the absolute key difference. A bank gives you a loan. You have to pay it back, plus interest, no matter what. But with the stock market, people called investors give the business money, not as a loan, but in exchange for owning a tiny piece of the company. They're becoming part owners, buying a share of its future.
And this word investor isn't as fancy as it sounds. An investor can be literally anyone. You, me, your cousin. It's anyone with some savings who looks at a business like this cake shop and says, hey, I believe in this. I want to help it grow, and I hope to get a piece of its success.
Of course, that brings us to the next obvious question. We've been throwing around this word profits, but what does it actually mean in the simplest terms?
Rija's explanation here is just perfect. Profit is the extra money left over after you've paid for everything. So, if it costs you 100 rupees to bake a cake, for the flour, the sugar, the electricity, and you sell that cake for 120 rupees, that extra 20 rupees you have left, that's your profit.
Just 20 rupees. I know, it doesn't sound like a lot, does it? But think about it. Now multiply that by thousands of cakes, sold in hundreds of new shops every single day. All of a sudden, that small number becomes the massive engine that drives the whole business forward and creates real value for those investors. And this might be the most important part of all. It's a shared journey. See, a bank wants its money back, period.
But an investor's future is tied directly to the cake shop's future. If the business is a huge success, the investor makes money. But if the business fails, the investor loses their money too. The risk and the potential reward are shared by everyone.
Okay, so the cake shop example makes sense. But let's zoom out from the bakery for a second. Why does this whole system actually matter in the real world, for all of us?
This line from the story pretty much says it all. The stock market is really just a big meeting place. On one side, you've got businesses with big ideas that need cash to make them happen. On the other side, you've got people with savings who are looking for good ideas to back. The stock market is simply the place that connects.
And with that beautifully simple explanation, you can just see the light bulb go on for Abba. He's not just relieved, he's proud. He finally gets it. His dad isn't a smuggler. His dad works at the very place that helps dreams, like a 100-shop cake empire, get the money they need to become real.
And that's the real takeaway here. The stock market isn't some abstract casino with numbers flying around. It is the fundamental engine of our economy. It's what allows a single great idea to grow into a huge company that can create thousands of jobs and make the products and services that we all use every single day.
So now you know the secret. It's not about charts and jargon, it's about believing in a business and wanting to be part of its story. And that really only leaves one final question for you. If you were an investor, what kind of company would you want to help build?